For sure. There's different types, like there's different variations of tantra, and it's quite deep. So to make it simple as like an intro to tantra,
An idiot's guide to
an
tantra.
idiot's guide is presence and really coming into your senses for the purpose and intention of presence within yourself and your relationship to self and your relationship to source and your relationship to others. I would say tantra was life changing for me because I lived in my head so much
Don't we
out of
all?
protection. We all do. But the thing is pleasure doesn't live in our head. If anything, our head is oftentimes a destroyer of pleasure. Pleasure lives in our body. And I don't even just mean pleasure in the form of sexual anything. I mean pleasure in the form of like biting into your favorite piece of fruit. Like that is pleasure. Hearing music, touching certain textures, smelling certain fragrances. And the thing is when you're in your body through your senses, you can't be in your head. It's impossible. You can't be sitting there feeling the texture of the fruit on your mouth, feeling its juices in the back of your throat, smelling it as you're putting it into your mouth. So when you can slow down enough to get into your senses, what do I see? Look at the different textures. If you get fruit and actually look at it, it's never just like one thing. Like there's so many different striations and marks and all of that. Like what, look at it. Feel what it feels like. Put it on your lips before you put it in your mouth. What does it feel like in your fingers? Is it wet? Is it dry? Taste it, smell it. What do you hear as you're eating it? Do you hear dogs in the background? Do you have music playing? Is it crunchy? Like, what is it that you hear? So when you get into your senses, it brings you into your body. It's the quickest way to get into your body, which then gets you out of your brain, which gives your brain a little bit of a pause so that you can actually be with yourself. Because the hustle, the go, 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 that's head. Your body does not want to be in a hustle. And it's a little bit different for men and women because you guys have the 24-hour day, whereas women, we have the 24-hour day and we have the on average 28-day cycle, which has 4 different seasons and phases within the 28-day cycle. So that will be very different and it's experience different. And that's where men and women need to learn the differences in all of that. But men, women, or anything still need time out of their brain and in their body, especially if they want to experience pleasure. And if we're speaking specifically to sex, is what this looks like is in a man, erectile dysfunction, right? Premature ejaculation, addiction to porn, addiction to sex. That's all head, pun intended or not, but like that's all up in your brain where you're thinking. Whereas when you are in your body, you will either last longer or you will be able to hold an erection better. You will be able to recognize what you're using the porn or the sex to be able to avoid. Like there's a lot more pleasure in that space. With a woman, what that looks like, vaginismus, which is actually the closing of the vaginal canal, lack of natural lubrication, lack of orgasm, inability to orgasm, hypersexuality, meaning there's a lot of women that will use their sexuality to gain attention or to gain love. A lot of men do this as well, like validation on both parts. So that is all in our heads. And then when we come to our body, a couple things happen. One, that's when you can actually explore the true depths of pleasure and not just the surface level. And 2, it also helps you to really honor and value your body and your sex and sexuality. So then you actually feel like, no, I choose who I want to share this with. I'm not just giving it away, which I think we have a massive issue in North America right now with just using sex as a tool. And I forget where I read it, but I was like, this is so true. It's like, if we're casually dating for like a month or 2, would I give you the code to my phone? I probably wouldn't. Most people wouldn't just give someone they've known for a month the password to their phone, but they're willing to let them on the inside of their body. Right? And I think that because we've really neutralized the power and potency of what sex and sexuality really is, that when we start to become present and in our body, we value that more. Therefore, we choose how to actually share it as opposed to use it. Sex is not meant to be used. It's meant to be shared in a space that, like, we can go down the whole thing around soul ties. Like, it's the time where a man and a woman together, again, we're speaking heteronormatively, you are not separate, right? Like, that's the one time in life that you are actually one, and you're creating a third identity that could not be created as individuals. Like, that is super sacred and super special. But we don't have that conversation all that often, which leads us to the types of relationships that we see more common in North American culture. Did that answer that question?
That did. That was a great answer. You've mentioned that sex, money, and menstrual cycles are the three big taboos. So how do we remove the shame and the stigma around those topics?
Doing exactly what we're doing, talking about it. It was Brene Brown that said, the biggest killer of shame is to speak it out loud. Because we all think that it's an individual thing, right? We either get taught about our period or we don't. But if you think of periods, they're all like, they're inconvenient, they're painful, they're shameful, and they're dirty, right? Like, how many times do you hear men, oh, she was probably just on her period, or like comments like that? I so badly want to be like, you know, that you came from a menstrual cycle. Like, you're making fun of it. I'm like, you would not have existed if menstrual cycles didn't exist. But people literally die over money, sex, and menstrual cycles. People kill and are killed and traumatized around those three things. And that's not just in North America, that's across the world. And it is scary. There are countries that literally take out women's organs so that they do not have a menstrual cycle. There's countries that cut off a woman's clitoris so that she doesn't experience pleasure. And then we all know all the sides of money and sex. Like, when we dive into like the dark side of sex and human trafficking and all of those things, it's like, with all three of those, you've got the polarity, the dark and the light on both. And the only way that we can actually start living in the light and having so much love and compassion for all of that is to talk about it. And all three of those things are completely related. The way you have relationships with romantic partners is very similar to the way you have relationships with money. If you're avoidant, right? If you're anxious about it, if you're secure with money, like, those are the three attachment styles with relationship. How many people do you know terrified of money? How many people do you know that are avoidant, that don't open their bank accounts or credit card statements? So the way we handle money, the way we handle sex, the way we handle relationships, the way we honor our bodies has everything to do with menstrual cycles too. Shame, confidence, or anywhere in between.